Hello, folks. Welcome to the 4099 podcast, episode 16, I believe. And we have just such incredible and an amazing guest today. A really good friend of mine, just such a talented artist, bilingual. He lives in a very holy place that a lot of people don't have the blessing of going to. But hopefully, with this conversation, we can give them a piece of that holy place, aka Israel, and we could talk about what he does, which is tattooing. And my guest today is Guy.
Oh, what's up?
How you doing, bro? Everything good?
I'm good. I'm good. Yeah, I'm cool. I'm cool. How are you?
Hey, man. Look, before we started recording, we were kind of talking about this crazy coronavirus thing going on and how it's affecting every single person on this world. And if there was maybe a chance when this first thing started that maybe it wouldn't affect me or maybe it wouldn't affect my country, I think that was all blown out of the water, right? We started kind of feeling
Mm.
like, wow, the whole world is affected. And the first thing I kind of wanted to ask you is, how did this virus impact your workflow and the way you work, being a tattoo
Uh,
artist?
well, basically, Israel kind of made steps on how they're gonna close down the country, not in one bit, but it kind of separated every job for its necessity. So as long as your job is not necessary, so you're basically the first one to go out of job.
Hmm.
So we were unemployed for 3.5 months. Which is basically zero income. As I told you earlier, if you're not working for someone, if you like have your own business in Israel, so you get basically nothing, no help from the country. If you're unemployed, you're unemployed.
Hmm.
So yeah, I didn't work at all. Some of my friends, some of my colleagues started producing more contemporary art, nothing that has to do with tattoos, which is basically prints, tattoo machine designs, anything that has to do with it.
Paintings,
Uh,
stuff like that.
Paintings, exactly. Yeah, t-shirts, whatnot.
Hmm.
Me personally, I was blessed to like have some spare money because I was supposed to go to Japan for a month and a half for a
Hmm.
trip. So I had like some spare change, so I decided to actually take it as a resting time. So I focused on not working, not drawing, nothing of that sort. Like I did draw a little bit just because I really missed it,
Hmm.
but mainly working out, playing video games, and chilling. So
So your three
that's
months
for
were
me.
spent pretty well.
Yep, yep, definitely. Like I'm really happy with it.
Did
Yeah.
I know, when an art becomes a job, some people say that you kind of lose
Mm.
you fall out of love with it, just because you start serving other people more than you kind of want to serve your own desires in terms of art. Did that break kind of having some time off from drawing and from tattooing, did that give you a new love for tattooing? Did that give you kind of some rest that you really needed? Or do you feel like you didn't need a break and you could have just continued doing what you were doing?
So I really did need a break. I was like I was planning this trip for Japan, I think at least since when I met you.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
it's like a year or so.
Yeah.
So I really
Yeah.
wanted the trip to happen. It didn't happen. Not tattooing for 3 months was one of the best things that happened to me, in my personal opinion,
Hmm.
for me and generally tattooing. I did realize that I love it. I missed it really, really badly when I didn't do it for that long. Fortunately, I was living with a really good friend of mine during like the lockdown, and he's like pretty covered in tattoos, so I did like 1 or 2 tattoos on him.
Hmm.
Uh, it was good. It was really good taking this break and realizing that this is what I love and want to do. So yeah, for me, it was good.
Yeah, no, that's always a cool thing about life. They say we as people, we as human beings always get used to everything. You know, we start taking those things and those people and everything around us for granted. And it's very nice, like, well, it's not nice when those things are taken away from us, but it gives us an opportunity to really understand how much we love that thing, right? Like for you, you
Sure.
know, as soon as tattooing was taken away from you for a little bit, you know, you naturally, because you love it so much, realized how much you missed it, man. And that's good to hear that you've, because of that separation a little bit, because of that distance, you realized, oh shit, this is something that I really love to do and I really, really miss it, you know? And I guess that means you're meant to be doing it, man.
That for sure. Yeah. That for sure. Like as for you just told me earlier, like about losing like a passion for drawing when it becomes your like business or whatnot. Uh, the whole thing made me realize that the tattoos I'm gonna make and like specific kind of style that I'm doing
Mm-hmm.
is gonna be 100% what I like, what I enjoy doing, and nothing that really has to do with what is expected me of doing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it made me use colors. Like I never used colors before. I was
Mm,
only working like black and white, very very specific needles. So it did really kind of open up my mind for different things and try different things. So it was good. Being on lockdown isn't nice. Not working, being out of job for 3 months isn't nice. It's not.
right.
It doesn't really make you think of a bright future, but it did have its good points for sure.
Um, yeah, so just to give people a little bit of a context
Yeah.
in terms of our relationship, we met in 2018, I believe, summer of
Right.
2018.
Right.
I was in Israel doing an internship in Jerusalem, and then I met this beautiful man in front of us, in front of that camera. I had a little bit of a, you know, spare money, and we all wanted to. So during the internship, we kind of were with other Americans that were trying to do similar things in terms of internship. I was doing graphic design, and before the trip ended, we all decided to get a kind of a, you know, a commemoration tattoo for being in Israel for 3 months and living in Jerusalem. And I remember walking into the shop, and you were just, you know, so nice to all the guys. And I remember I wanted to get it like a rose tattoo, and I didn't know where I wanted to get it at, either behind the ear or on my foot. And then you kind of just broke it down, and you're like, no, bro, no, 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 no. If you want to get like such an intricate tattoo behind your ear, you know, you explained to me that the
Yeah.
skin there is not so good because it fades over time if you put it behind the ear. And
Right.
you're like, let's do it on the leg, man. Let's do it on the leg. It's going to be way better that way. And I took your advice, and thankfully I took your advice, because if I would have came home and my mom would have saw me have a neck tattoo, she would fucking disown me, man.
Yeah, right. Nice. So it was like actually 2 years ago, man. That's I think exactly 2 years ago, you know?
Yeah,
It
exactly
was
2 years
around
ago.
September, August. Yep.
Yeah, exactly, man.
Sure.
And we were just so
Sure.
excited, man. We were all excited. You know, some people were getting tattoos for the first time. I already had a couple of tattoos, but really, like, everything about us was like well, not everything, but a lot of things about us were similar. You know, we both spoke Russian. We both were are really, really interested in art, the arts. Um, we had a lot of commonalities, man, and we had just such a genuine conversation and a genuine connection that has led us this far. Um, so yeah, I really appreciate that, man. I really appreciate you.
Sure. I appreciate you back. Thank you. Thank
Yeah, man, of course. So I kind of want to dive into your experience as a tattoo artist. And you know, I really want to ask you how you first got into it, because, you know, if people don't know, maybe you can explain more. Israel is
you.
not such a good place, maybe to be wearing, you know, tattoos, because there's such a stigma involved with having tattoos, and Israel being a Jewish nation, you know, and in Judaism, tattooing is kind of looked down upon. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. So at first I got into tattooing basically from my mom's advice. She's really into tattoos and she's really into art. She's an
Mm,
architect herself, like so she really likes it. At first at around age 17, a dude named Poco. He's like right now one of my bosses. He asked if I want to come in and have an apprenticeship. At that time, I was like really into the IDF, army, or the combat service and stuff. So I declined actually, and I told him I want to go and serve my 3 years as a combat soldier. As it happened, I didn't manage to get into combat, and after a year and a half of service, I was kicked out of a specific unit. So I had a lot of spare free time during my day. So my mom told me like, "Fuck it, why won't you just try and get that apprenticeship back?" So I asked him and got into it. So I had an apprenticeship of a year and a half or so, maybe a little more, and since then it's been almost 5 years. So
Wow.
yeah. As for tattoos in Israel generally, at the past few years, it's gotten really, really big, really mainstream. So it's way more accepted than it used to be not that long ago. If you're living in Jerusalem, you're getting looked down upon, and all these weird stares, and Israelis are very open people, so they might just walk up to you and tell you you look like shit and you will die in hell. So yeah, so that happens quite often actually. But it's good, like it's cool. I understand, they're religious. It's either they're Muslims or Jews. Like Christians don't really have a problem with it. So mainly Muslims and Jews. They give you the shit. Pardon my French. But generally, it's getting a little better. You see it on TV, you see it on football players, on any kind of celebrity. So it really puts it out there. So step by step, it is getting a little better for sure.
Yeah, man. The reason I was laughing or chuckling a little bit when you said, people come up to you and Israelis are very open and they say you look like shit sometimes is because, living in obviously when it first happens to you, it's kind of like, what the fuck, but it gives you a tough skin. You know what I mean? You live in Israel for a couple of years and then you can pretty much, it's a running joke that you can pretty much handle the world. You know what I mean? If you have very open people that are very honest about what they think about you and you live in that place for a couple of years, you kind of grow that skin, right? And then you can go out into the world and nothing will bother you, because you've already the worst has already been said to your face.
That's for sure. Like if you could, let's say if you're working at any kind of field that you have to give service to people, you have to handle clients and make them like you. Israelis could be really nice. Most of the time, they're really nice. They're very family orientated. They're really warm. They'll help you in any way they can, even if they don't know you. But on the other hand, as I said, you might have zero knowledge of who's the person right in front of you, and he would tear you apart just because of the way you look, or the language you speak, or your belief. So yeah, if you could handle Israelis, you could basically handle any kind of other nationality, bullshit. I guess. Yeah. Most bullshit just flies like right past your face, and it's nothing. So.
Yeah, man. So you said that you started tattooing about after a little bit, maybe during your service, but what, 5 years ago, right? Yeah, and so I want you to talk us and our listeners through your evolution and experience as an artist. Like, what did you first go into tattooing liking, and then what has those things maybe evolved into?
Good question. So as long as I can remember myself, so it's like age 2 or 3. I just started drawing stuff, basically just like a little kid, so nobody really took it seriously. But then at around age 4, I started watching anime, which is like Pokemon, Inuyasha, Dragon Ball Z, all that kind of stuff.
Classics.
Yeah. So it really like kind of gave me a push into drawing. I really tried to copy the same quality and same intricacies and details that you had in those series. So
Mhm.
it really like gave me the main liking for drawing and painting and everything that has in between. Um, I really got seriously into drawing when my mom, I think, realized that I might have a knack for it and it's not just for fun. So my parents sent me to it's a semi-private school.
Mhm.
It's called Omanuyot. Omanuyot in Hebrew is arts.
Mhm.
So it was since basically 6 years. It was pretty intense at times, but it really made me realize that I will not be doing anything else in my life except something that has to be related with art. I didn't know it was going to be tattooing,
Mhm.
but definitely there. As for tattoos, since I swear, like age 9 or 10, you had your chips, like chip bags. I think you call layers in your like
Yeah,
in the
yeah, yeah.
States.
Lays. Yep.
So you had like those permanent tattoos that wash in water,
Yeah, yeah,
unpermanent,
yeah.
sorry. So I remember like since age 9 or 10, I was buying those like crisp bags just to get out the temporary tattoo and put it on myself, like, and I will cover my
Wow.
whole neck, face, and hands. And when
I only
yeah,
imagine what, what mom was thinking or what dad was thinking, when you were when you were walking around with the lays.
yeah. Actually, my mom got her first tattoo when she was 30, so I was not good with math. Uh, I was young,
Yeah,
and I really
yeah.
liked it. I really
Oh,
liked it, and it was seemed like it blew my mind that it doesn't wash off.
wow. Yeah.
So I
Yeah, yeah.
realized that you could get actually those things that you put on yourself without them washing off.
Mm-hmm.
So I was really into tattoos since a really young age, but I think not at least till I finished my apprenticeship, or maybe even till like 3 years ago, I did
Mm-hmm.
not think that I'm gonna be a tattoo artist. It just kind of happened. So
Wow.
yeah.
And did you when you first started the internship, did you have a specific style that you wanted to imitate, or or were you doing like everything? Were you doing neo-traditional, traditional, Japanese, traditional? Like, where did you start? And was it was it something that you kind of got into tattooing and you already knew what the hell you wanted to do, and that's what ended up being the thing, or what was that transition?
Uh, when I got into my apprenticeship, it was after I think 2 years of intensively painting realistic tattoos, like photorealistic portraits
Mm-hmm.
mainly. So I was pretty sure that that's what I'm gonna do.
Mm-hmm.
I was overconfident in myself and my abilities in painting and everything. I was painting pretty well,
Mm-hmm.
but when I picked up the machine, and for the first time in my life, and started like tattooing fake skin,
Mm-hmm.
I realized that not that I'm not able to make a portrait, I'm not even able to make a one straight line.
Wow. Wow.
Um, so from being sure that I'm gonna be a hyper realistic tattoo artist, I was basically struggling to make a proper like stick figure. So at that point, I realized that I'm not having any kind of style in the next year. I'm just gonna try as hard as I can to make a crisp straight line.
Mm.
After that, I was, as I said, I'm really into Japanese culture
Mm-hmm.
generally, so I was really trying to become a Japanese traditional tattoo artist.
Mm-hmm.
And then I realized I'm not Japanese. So I might really like it, I might really be into it, but I'm not Japanese. So
Mm-hmm.
I'll never be able to understand the full extent of Japanese tattooing and Japanese culture to really be a Japanese tattoo artist that I was aiming to be.
Mm-hmm.
It's not realistic in my point of view. So only 2.5, 3 years ago, and that's already like 2 years or a year and a half after I started my apprenticeship.
Mm-hmm.
I just told myself, fuck it, I'm gonna tattoo what I like, and I like anime.
Yeah.
And thank God it blew off. Like it really worked, and it took me at least 2 years of perfecting it. I'm still not perfect at it at any not even close to it, but I'm finally starting to see like the fruits. So yeah.
Yeah, that's something very important that you said. I think is that you said you're still not perfect at it, but you're really trying to push that bar and always reach um, your ideal level of perfection, and that's important because that gives us as people, right? When the moment we say we know something is the moment where we stop growing as a person, right? Is the moment where it's like, oh, okay, if I know this thing, why learn more about it, right? So it's very important that I think that people always tell themselves, no, I'm not perfect at this thing. I have so much more to learn, right? Um, do you think that what do you think? Because I'm really curious about this. What do you think your you would say your personal traits are that are most important with progressing yourself as an artist and as a tattoo artist? Is it that mentality of never giving up? Is it that mentality of knowing that that drive and that constant hunger to reach something, or maybe I'm missing something?
You got it pretty right, actually. I'm a kind of person that, if you don't know me, a lot of people tend to think that I was born, really good at tattooing,
Mm-hmm.
um, or whatever, successful, however the fuck you want to call it. Um, Actually, nothing worked out for me easily ever.
Mm.
Um, I had to redo everything at least 4 or 5 times, and I swear everything, like my GEDs,
Wow.
um, getting into the specific unit that I wanted to serve at. Even at school, just for an example, I was a really good student. I'm bad at studying, um, even when I really tried to.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, the hunger for being the best and being successful at what I do is definitely the one of the main things that make me want to do it and become better. Uh, and actually, the second most, the biggest thing that drives me towards it is
Mm.
my surroundings. I'm
Mm.
surrounded by some really, really talented people. My partner, her name is Katya, which is a tattoo artist as well.
Mhm.
So you're 24/7 under, observation. So you have to keep your game up all the time.
Yeah.
So I don't think that if you don't strive to be better than where you were yesterday, you will never get better. So it's a progression. You always have to work on
Wow, such inspirational. We're getting free life
it.
advice, man. Free life advice for people, man. It's like that I completely agree with you, man. I think a lot of people sometimes forget to attribute the amount of success they have to the people around them. I think personally, and you can let me know if you agree with me, but I think personally, the single most important thing for a person to have is a good surrounding, because we as
Definitely.
people, man, we as people, we're such social beings. We're such social animals that we are our surroundings, right? Like we are everything that is around us. The tree right there that's in front of me, or this wall or something. We're constantly looking at something. We're constantly
Definitely.
absorbing like a sponge. And if we understand how much of a sponge we are, I feel like we'd at that point start realizing, holy shit, if I'm absorbing this much information already and I'm existing by literally absorbing information, that's the reason we exist, right? That's a reality. Then holy fuck, like this means that all of my friends, everyone that I talk to, everyone that I'm constantly making memories with, I need these people to really drive me. I need these people to really influence me, right?
That's for sure. Like if again, I was really, really blessed to be around the people that I am. They are my best friends since I don't know, since 15 years, some even
Mm,
more. One of my friends is from like third grade. Most of them have
wow.
nothing to do with tattooing except from being heavily tattooed.
Hmm.
They're not painting, they're not drawing, but each and one of them strives to be the best at what they do, even if it's like the my friend that I know from third grade, he's almost done with the second degree in history. Uh,
Wow.
we're not that young. We're 25. He's almost 26. But you do have to remember that in Israel you have mandatory service, so
Right.
you
Right.
only start uni at around 21, 22.
Hmm.
If you're like in a hurry.
Males,
Um,
for the people that don't know, everyone in Israel, every citizen in Israel has to serve mandatory army time. Men, I think 3 years, and women too, right?
yeah. Right now it's
So
2.8 for men, and it used to be three. So yeah, I served for 3 years.
and again, for the people that don't know, and that means that you know, us as Americans, me as an well, not really an American, but living in America, a lot of the traditional thing that happens is we are not required to go to the army. So we basically, from age 18 or 17, we have the option to do whatever. Most people go to university right after, but that's not the case in Israel. Right after high school, everyone's required to go to the army. So imagine 3 years of your life after the army, 18 to 21, or depending on, obviously everyone's time scale is different, but usually from 18 to 21, you're going to the army. And that's something that I actually wanted to ask you too. Do you think that going to the army for you was I know you said that that you kind of left after a year and a half. Do you think that going to the army was there's anything positive about going to the army? Do you think that it gave you a better being in a very strict environment, that gave you a sense of, you know, regimen, like managing your time, or maybe doing daily tasks a certain way? Or do you just not really do you don't not really look at the army as a good thing?
Um, I think the army is a good thing, not for everyone.
Hmm.
A lot of people end up in a really bad place in the army, but I think that generally it is a good thing. Uh, for me, being in a strict environment was only for about a year and a half or so, and then I was transferred for another unit that was not strict, to say the least.
Right, right, right,
um, it did give me an understanding that sometimes in life there's a situation that you have no say in it.
right.
Sometimes things happen. Sometimes um, shit happens in life. So the army kind of gives you a perspective in that form, that if a commander tells you to do something and you don't do it, you go to jail.
Hmm.
So you have to deal with the situation that is given to you.
Right.
I don't think that it made me a stricter person or gave me like a sense of, uh, like work ethics or whatever. I already
Hmm.
had that in me.
Okay.
But definitely it gave me a perspective on life generally. And um, some other things, as in, what happens when you give an 18-year-old so much power in their hands most of the time, sometimes, not most of the time. But yeah, there it's really, really complicated. But yeah, I think it's a good thing. Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, yeah. So, you know, kind of looking back at tattooing a little bit. Um, so a lot of the time, when we look at, you know, the tattooing industry and stuff like that, um, we can't help but look at how much has evolved through the history, right? And we look constantly at where it originated from, and you know, tattooing originated from very tribal beginnings, right? You know, tribes people getting tattoos and to signal their ranking in society. You know, whether they're a chieftain or maybe a queen or something like that, and then it's evolved into this huge mainstream thing where people are getting tattoos maybe to of something they like or something that was significant to them, or even like gang tattoos going back. That kind of goes a little bit back into again, that tribal lifestyle, right? The ranking lifestyle.
Definitely.
um so it's very interesting to look at the tattoo, or to look at the history of tattooing, you know. And then you have, you know, tattooing becoming more mainstream. You have and maybe your timeline is different, but from the way I learned it, I learned that, you know, Sailor Jerry, kind of was the first to start, tattooing, pinup girls and traditional tattoos on sailors and Navy men. And then, they came home and, that plumber, and this is very like a very American, way of looking at it more. But you have that, maybe that plumber, you as a kid, you saw a plumber and the guy had a full sleeve or something like that. And you're like, oh my God, that's so cool. And, you have a lot of those kind of stories, right? But now, like I said, it's become such a mainstream thing. Um, from the way you learned about tattooing, was your timeline a little similar, or were you looking at a kind of a different historical timeline?
Uh, uh, in Israel, generally, as in everything, as in fashion, as in food, movies, everything that you have is basically a delayed United States of America.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so if your tattooing started around the, let's say, 30s, 40s, Sailor Jerry, of course you had tattooers that did it way before. Like in the 20s, you had Doc something. I'm not sure. I don't remember his name. So I do know that tattooing was around even in the States way before Sailor Jerry. He kind of was the first one to make it more pop culture with all the sailors and stuff. In Israel, the timeline is a little different. You had one tattoo artist at around the late 60s, early 70s. He's kind of the OG tattooer in Israel. But that's as a Western man. Right in the city of Jerusalem where I live, there's in the old city, you have a dude called Razuk. He supposedly claims, and I think it's true, his family has been tattooing crusaders for 600 years.
Wow.
Yeah, people who like come to Jerusalem as a part of a crusade or something of that sort.
Holy shit.
Yeah. So I think tattooing originated at it started at every place in the world. Not, I don't know if simultaneously, but at around the same time, but for different reasons, that's for sure. In Israel, the mainstream culture definitely began in prison. You had your mainly Russian or ex-USSR convict who ended up in jail. People, being an immigrant to that country is not easy, and a lot of people tend to go to crime. So yeah, gang tattoos, prison tattoos. In Israel, you don't really have gangs. You have like family. It's in Hebrew, it's called mishpachat pesha. It's basically a crime family. To have some of those, they don't tend to have tattoos because they're religious.
Right.
So it originated from like the early 80s, 90s, and now it's like a huge thing. Everybody has tattoos. Like not everybody, obviously, because there's a lot of religious people, but at least from my circle, like from the people that I know. So
yeah, no, that's such such an amazing thing to hear. Yeah, you think about it, but you telling that story, of just, I mean, just the Crusaders even getting tattooed that long ago, right? Wow, it expands your world so much to hear those kind of stories. Holy shit. So what do you think, where do you think the tattoo industry is now? What do you like about it? What do you not like about it so much? And where do you think it's going to go to in the future? And I know that's a very broad and vague question, right? But I am interested in it.
Right now, tattooing is at I think one of the main crossroads it had ever since it became popularized. Information is so widespread and so easily attained these days that you don't really need an apprenticeship. You don't really need like a teacher who will sit down with you and teach you your tattooing. Obviously, in my opinion, it is still the proper and right way to do it. You should get, in my opinion, a proper apprenticeship under a certified tattoo artist, a good one, and a good teacher. Doing it by yourself is only a cause for a lot of mistakes and a lot of unnecessary, injuries and whatnot.
Right.
Right now, tattooing has taken a big turn, mainly in, I think, because of Instagram, TikTok, celebrities, widespread media. If you had your basic guidelines and rules as for how you're supposed to be tattooing and what's a no-no and what's an okay way to do it, it kind of really faded away. Even if you're like one of the main reasons for it, I think, is Korean tattooers, like artists from Korea. I don't think that any of them, at least the first batch of tattooers, had an apprenticeship because it's illegal there. It's still kind of underground. And they started a new wave of tattooing called miniature realism, or miniature tattoos generally, which was a very big no-no in tattooing because the lines are too thin, they're not thick enough, they're not deep enough, they're not whatever. But at the same time, they kind of showed everyone that it's art. And if you want to call yourself a tattoo artist, so do your art. And that's what they did. They didn't follow any rules. They didn't follow any restrictions. They just did whatever they wanted. And it looks, in my opinion, amazing, like in my opinion. It will not last for as long as a bold, traditional American tattoo. Right. It definitely will not. You're like the completely different needle groupings and stuff, but it's still really beautiful, and I think it's nice. So I think tattooing will become way bigger than it is today, but at the same time, I have a feeling that in like a generation or two, tattoos will not be cool anymore.
Why do you think?
Why do I think? Even if you look like at an Instagram filter or whatever, they're trying to perfect you. You're taking photos of yourself where you're perfect. I think that in time, as we look at like the boomer generation, they will look at us as the, whatever, getting tattoos is cool generation. And because I think that not in that much time you will have like cream solutions that will take away tattoos in a second. You will not need like to go through laser treatments to get it off. So it'll be just way too easy. It will not have as much of a meaning as it has today to getting a tattoo. Like you get a tattoo, it hurts, it stays for the rest of your life. Of course, you could end it up with like one or two laser treatments that are done properly, but it loses some of its main appeal. I don't know, depth, appeal. Yeah. That's my opinion. Like I tend to overthink everything. So
no, that's amazing, man. Because I you being in the industry and you having such a close tie and connection to tattooing, these things I'm learning for the first time. Like these are such good points. I never thought that. A lot of the time we're so connected to our experience and our reality. We don't look ahead. And when we do look ahead, it's very hard for us to separate the future from us now, so it's very hard for someone to say, if they're in the industry, that tattooing will not be as relevant as it is now, because that's where you're making your money. That's where all of your joy and pleasure is coming from. And I feel like you saying that maybe, and again, it's your insight into it. You saying that tattooing won't be as maybe not as relevant, but a little bit less important and maybe a little bit looked down upon. I feel like you're doing a very good job kind of being very, what is it called? Neutral, not putting a lot of your personal opinions and looking at it into the future. So yeah, that's a really good point, man. That's a really, really good point. Maybe next generation, those kids will look at us as as the boomers, as the weirdos, right? Man, so wow. Such good insight, man. Such good insight. And so many more questions, dude. Okay, so what do you think, talking about the history of tattooing, talking about the industry of tattooing, I kind of want to cover one more question with you. Um,
Sure.
what do you how do you feel about, because you said something very important before. You said that um, even now we see it a little bit, right, where now anyone can go into a tattoo shop, anyone can get a tattoo, usually anywhere they want to. Even you mentioned about the apprenticeship thing, like, right, like you don't really need apprenticeships really now, because you have so many YouTube videos or so much information at your fingertips. um, I kind of want to get your insight and your opinion about that, because whereas looking at it more from the the English American kind of perspective, people used to have to go underground, even, or in a basement or somewhere very dark and quiet where nobody really knows about, or maybe in an alleyway or something like that. And tattooing was something that was earned. You wouldn't get tattooed if you didn't have the stripes to prove it. You wouldn't get tattooed if you didn't go through something. And now, again, anyone can go in there and get a tattoo of anything they really want. It even used to be that you couldn't get certain things. You had to stick to a very strict um, regiment and guidelines of getting tattooed. And now tattooing is getting so much broader, right? Do you look at that as a good thing, or do you look at that as a bad thing in terms of it losing its significance?
I think that like it has its good sides and bad sides. For me personally, as a tattoo artist, the like the reason that people get so much more tattoos, they spend a lot more money on it. So financially, of course, I'm all for it.
Mm-hmm.
Really good. But looking at it as a tattoo artist and other as a tattooer, I think there is a tiny difference in between that. It did lose some of its significance and romance, because even just like you mentioned, you have your gang tattoos, for an example. You have to earn some of them.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't really matter like what kind of gang, even if it's a Russian one, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You have to prove a point, prove yourself to get a tattoo. It's like one extreme of it. I don't
Mm-hmm.
say like if you want to get a Naruto tattoo, you should like take out 4 kunais and throw it. Of course not.
Although it would be good.
It would be really nice. Yeah, seeing people attempt to do like jutsus to get an anime tattoo, that would be perfect. But I think that if it would have been somewhere in the middle, it would be the best. But it never stays there. It was at some point an extreme, like you had your ancient whatever crusaders, warriors, wherever in part of the world that had to really earn it, struggle for it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you had your like in Japan you have your yakuza, in Russia you have your vorov zakonie, in the
Yep.
States I guess you have your Crips, Bloods, whatever.
Yep.
That's like slowly deteriorating into, people want to have a tattoo studio that is looking like a clinic, which I don't like white marble glasses everywhere. I don't
Right.
my opinion on it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They want to have machines that do not make too much noise. They want to put on creams that will make you not feel any pain. In my opinion, that's the core of tattooing, feeling it.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, when I'm getting tattooed, like I have quite a lot of tattoos and I'm putting these creams as well. Like I'm
Mm-hmm.
using them. I'm sick of it hurting. I just want to
Yeah.
get a tattoo. Like I want it
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
look
Yeah.
nice. So I'm really kind of torn, in my opinion, with it. I'm right in the middle, like
Mm-hmm.
right in the middle with it. Yeah.
Yeah. So in a way, you do want it to be very a romantic experience, something that is you look at in a very high regard. But on the other hand, you're a future man. You're a present man, so you're a future man. You like where it's going. You like the fact that it's a little bit more accessible to
Definitely.
everyone, and everyone has the right. and the option to get a tattoo. So yeah, I agree, man. I'm right there with you. I think that it's not so good that I think it's not so good that a lot of the, like you said, such the romantic, the pure experience of getting a tattoo, of it hurting, of you stressing out about it, of you thinking over and over again, is this what I really want? Or, something like that. I think that's what makes the experience so pure. But in the on the other hand, it's like, I couldn't get a tattoo 20 years ago if I didn't have to do something, or if I wasn't this person, or if I wasn't that person. And I love tattooing, and personally, I love the fact that it's getting much more not only recognized, but much more accessible, right? Um, so, Mike, to wrap this podcast up, to wrap this episode up, man, it's something that we really connect on, both of us, is both of our loves for anime. So I kind of want to ask to end the podcast off on like a very high note, and a very positive note. What have you been recently watching, and what are some animes that you would really recommend, or maybe even manga that you would recommend the viewers and the listeners to maybe look at?
Right, so recently, I kind of struggled with finding new good animes.
Mhm.
Not to overthink it. Good animes. All right, so there's a new one on Netflix. Actually, I do not like Netflix animes. They're trying to be Japanese. They're not Japanese.
Mhm.
Then again, what I told you in the beginning. Um, Japan Sinks 2020 is really, really good. Um, my personal favorites, like all-time favorites, is Gangsta, which is by the
Mhm.
same author that made Samurai Champloo and Cowboy
Yeah.
Bebop.
Yep.
Uh, Death Note, which is, your
Oh.
most basic
Yeah.
anime, but
Yeah.
still I think is the best one, best rated series, period, anime or
Mhm.
not. And Naruto. Everybody should be watching Naruto.
Hell yeah, bro. Hell yeah, man. I
Yeah.
I had a that's actually really, really good. You need to actually, after this interview, be sure to send me a list of some things to check out, because I've been
Okay.
watching, I actually watched the Netflix anime. I think it was called Fireworks or something like that. Which was really good. I'll send you a list of some things I've
Okay.
I've
Yeah.
been watching. But of course, man, you have classics like Samurai Champloo and Cowboy Bebop. You have amazing anime like Yu Yu Hakusho, and the same creator that made Yu Yu Hakusho made
Exactly.
Hunter x Hunter. So
Right.
that's
Right. Hunter X Hunter, by the way, really good. Yeah.
yeah, I love that shit, man. One of my favorite new anime. Even though it's not really new, but it's really, really good. Um, and then you have the new Miyazaki, right? I forgot exactly the name, but the Japanese call him the new Miyazaki because he's the creator of I believe he made Garden of Words, and he made
Oh, right. 5 centimeters per second. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I know
yeah,
what
yeah,
you're
yeah.
talking about.
All of those really, really good ones. He also had another good one. He made I think, don't quote me on this. I think it's called
Right.
Children Who Chased Lost Voices. I think that's
It's the same
something.
dude we're talking about. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But yeah, those are some things that I recommend to the listeners and the people viewing this. Um, but man, so dude, thank you so much
Sure.
for
Thank you. Yeah.
giving not only me this time, but giving the listeners and the viewers a perspective and an insight on into your life and into the things that the thing that you're really, really passionate about, the tattooing industry. Maybe we'll have some listeners and some folks that view this that will go out and if not get a tattoo, maybe look at tattooing a little differently. And I really, really appreciate you being so honest and being so punctual and getting here on time and really sharing this moment with us and sharing this moment with the listeners and the viewers. um, to end this podcast, I want to give you the platform to say maybe anything that you have coming up that you're excited about, or to maybe give even more insight to people, or more inspiration to people, an inspirational message, or anything like that, to end the podcast off.
Inspirational message. So first coming up, unfortunately, I do not have anything coming up because we're in Corona time in Israel. It's
Mhm.
kind of fucked with it.
Yeah,
Um, except for t-shirts and whatever. Inspirational stuff. Uh, something one of my ex-commanders in the army told me not that long ago. Basically, don't be too influenced by your elderly surroundings. This generation might be more like richer, has more resources, has more information. So use it, be proud of it. Them lacking these things doesn't mean it's not okay. You having them, do what you like, do what you want. It's like the most cliche thing ever. But in Israel, you get a good perspective on what happens when you do not do what you want at that time. So that's my, cliche message for you. And hard work hard at whatever you do. So, yeah.
Well, man, thank you so much again. And thank you, listeners and viewers, for checking out the 4099 podcast. And we will continue dropping content. We'll continue keeping you guys in the loop and bringing interesting guests on. And thanks again for watching or listening to episode 16. And we'll see you next time.